Aloha, I'd like to introduce Makaha'a. He's one of our employees that was an initial apprentice under my tutelage, to say, who has now been with us for a year. Makaha'a was just in the process of cutting the binding for this instrument. It's a concert-size ukulele that is getting binding, and in this case this is a po'okela, or what would be our top-of-the-line model here at Kanile'a, and it just involves a lot of inlay work. So what Makaha'a has done is he's cut for the binding on the front and the back, and in this case he's already finished the inlay on the front, which is mother of pearl, New Zealand paua, abalone, mother of pearl trim around the edge of the instrument, both in the purfling around the soundboard and also on the side of the instrument. And in this case there's a wood inlay rosette of curly myrtle, which is trimmed with mother of pearl, or paua, mother of pearl, around the edge. And on the soundboard there's an inlay of our name, Kanile'a, in mother of pearl. So what Makaha'a has done, he's trimmed the edge of the instrument, preparing it for binding. Now initially this ukulele looked like this, similar to this, where it just been assembled, where the front, the back, and the sides have been put together. The trim, or this excess of wood, will be trimmed off, similar to how the binding is cut with a laminate trimmer. Once it's trimmed off, it looks like this, which is pretty much the next step, getting the edge flush with the sides. And once that's completed, then depending on the model, it may get binding, which is what has gone on here. This is the same style ukulele. It's a soprano, one of our K2 models, and in this case the channel has been cut along the edge of the instrument to allow us to inlay or bind the edge of the instrument with curly maple. So it's a curly maple bound curly koa body with a black, white, black, white, black inlay rosette, which is a inlay that dresses the sound hole, or the puka. So all these are on their way of being completed. They're just going through the steps of getting their edges trimmed and cleaned up. Once they're done being trimmed and cleaned up, then they go on to get where the neck and the body is joined via a spline joint. Once the neck and body is joined, then we go ahead and we do the fingerboard or the fretboard, and that helps to secure and fasten the neck to the body. So that actually happens over here on this workbench. So all these instruments here are in the process of having their neck put on. In this case it's been assembled already, and then next would be the fingerboard, which is this portion here that rides on top of the neck, and it helps to secure this joint along with the spline that's already done. So in this case this is a curly koa baritone trimmed with purple heart as the binding, and it also has a purple heart wood inlay rosette, a curly koa body, front, back, and sides. The neck material we use Honduras mahogany as the neck, and then we combo that. In this case I believe it's getting a rosewood fingerboard, and the fingerboard here and the bridge here will be made of rosewood. So it's on its way of ukulele hood, to say. This is probably 75 to 80% finished. Once we glue on the fingerboard, which is here, then it goes on to final sanding. And in this case it's a curly koa fingerboard, curly koa bridge that will be put on later with a curly koa body. The binding is made of turquoise, and it's hard to see there, but it's actually supposed to resemble a turtle shell material. And then it also has the trim of mother of pearl on the front, and curly koa for the back. So once it's done here, it will get final sanded. A head plate will be put on it. Once the head plate is put on it, then it's on its way to the finish room, or finish work. We do an alternating spray, sand, finish. That's a lacquer finish. Eventually coming to a 600 water grit sand, or a wet sand, and we allow it to cure 10 to 14 days. Once the curing process is done, then it goes over to my workbench where I do the buffing, the final setup, putting on the tuning keys, and doing the action, putting the strings on, and going through all its finish work. So that's kind of like the whole ukulele process in a nutshell. I didn't get into all the fine points of our process, because of course there's 100 different builders and 100 different ways of doing it. But this is our method of building ukuleles.